Okay, Jim, you're live.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is an honor to be here and be present with you through World Unity Week. It is an honor. I am so grateful for the many volunteers that have put this on. As you can see, the title of this presentation is Return to the Table, a call to heal our dis-ease world through the soul of food. Before I begin, I just want to make sure I thank Cullum for being the room steward, my friend Brian Kelly, who's the Zoom tech, and Terry Angel, who's also helping out as a Zoom tech. The reason I'm here is because I feel very passionate about this particular topic, especially after the events over the last year and a half. Before I start, I want to read you a quote. You're comprised of 84 minerals, 23 elements, and 8 gallons of water spread across 38 trillion cells. You have been built up from nothing but by the spare parts of the earth you have consumed. According to a set of instructions hidden in a double helix and small enough to be carried by a sperm. You are recycled butterflies, plants, rocks, streams, firewood, wolf fur, and shark teeth, broken down to their smallest parts and rebuilt into our planet's most complex living thing. You are not living on Earth. You are Earth. The universe's DNA is embedded in all things, and all things are enabled and embedded in the DNA of the universe. Therefore, we are not only one with the universe, but we are all one with one another. There is no doubt that our physical body is of Earth, but there is more to us, so much more. To all living, breathing beings that are on Earth, there is this quality, this essence that is tangible in some ways and in other ways intangible. But this presence is inescapable. That is our soul, our spirit, the divine spark of life that sustains us. It is evident when it is present and it is evident when it isn't. It is that essence to which I'm appealing to you today. I'm appealing to your higher consciousness, your divine self, your God-imbued self. Over the course of the past year and a half, we have seen much separation, division, turmoil, and violence. Families have been separated from one another due to differing opinions on an array of issues. Many of our lives, our communities, and vast parts of our world are stricken with this dis-ease of self between oneself and one another. This dis-ease is eating us alive from the inside out, causing not only sickness, but also distortions of unity, equality, justice, and personal rights. In many corners of the globe, we no longer live as if we are one, and one with the universe, not alone, one with each other. Return to the table, a call to heal our dis-ease-stricken world through the soul of food, is a rallying call to reawaken a more balanced relationship, first with ourselves, then with others, and then with the larger global community. But it must first begin within ourselves. It is my contention that much of the distortions that we see being played out on the world stage is that many think solely of themselves and of their own interests, to the exclusion of others. As a result, these internal distortions of separation and rejection prevent all of us from seeing that we are not separated from others, but rather we are part of the whole. We are mirrors to one another. What I see in you is what I love or detest within myself. What you see in me is what you love or detest within yourself. And having a recalibrated and more accurate viewpoint of who we all truly are, divine beings created by the God of our understanding, by using the soul of food to heal us all physically, emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually, then we can help bring balance to others, their communities, and all to the other parts of the world through cooperation and co-creation. So before I get started and go further, let me just go over a couple of terms as far as what I mean. So when I say the word dis-ease, and I spelled it a very specific way, D-I-S hyphen E-A-S-E, which is a little different than the one word disease. Dis-ease is an internal state of discomfort with oneself, whether that be thoughts, emotional being, physical being, one's physical space, or one's own environment. They are not at ease with their place or position in the world and or with others. The internal effects of dis-ease might look like this: self-loathing, self-hating, absent from oneself or disassociated from oneself, depressed, using substance abuse to numb. External attributes of this dis-ease might mean that someone's expressing hatred to others, someone who's antisocial, judgmental, argumentative, confrontational, or just rigid, inflexible, not allowing others to be able to show who they are in light and in love. Dis-ease, if not dealt with, can later develop into a full-blown disease. For example, many people are predisposed to diabetes. It's a family history. Well, just because you're predisposed does not mean you're going to have diabetes full-blown, requiring medical treatment. Just because you're predisposed, you have an opportunity to ease yourself and not be at dis-ease. To be at dis-ease regarding this condition might mean that you're experiencing a lot of stress. You're eating poor quality food, or you're eating poor food, or eating too much food, allowing that dis-ease to be able to manifest itself eventually into becoming diabetes. So food and the soul of food has a huge part in how our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual lives are led. When I say soul of food, you know that food is full of vitamins and minerals. But there are other qualities to food as well. Food is medicinal. It has many medicinal properties. Food is healing. Food is spiritual. Food is also communal. So the soul of food and all its qualities and properties across all of these areas is what I'm talking about. So going deeper into this conversation, I have mentioned that we must first begin within ourselves. Many of us are at dis-ease. Physically, we have illnesses. Mentally, we have illnesses. Emotionally, we have illnesses. There's a call to heal ourselves, to find balance, to have a clear view of ourselves and others. We are full of distortions. I mean, you're not alone, because we all have distortions. Distortions mean that we don't see clearly, that we allow our feelings, our emotions, our physical state of being, our thoughts, and our beliefs interfere with seeing things in a clearer way. Those distortions can be minimal, or those distortions can be downright heartbreaking. But we all have distortions in which we need to be able to see clear. In many different religious groups and spiritual groups, there's this understanding of what we call chakras. These chakras are energy centers within the system, within our body, in our physical body, in our spiritual body. And when energy is flowing good, life seems to have a better quality. When energy isn't flowing good, life seems to have less of a better quality. Think of it this way. You suffer from stomach problems. Well, some of that may be because of what we eat. Some of that may be because of how we deal with anxiety. Some of that may be because of how we think. In either case, there's a disruption with the flow of energy through your system, and it manifests itself within your stomach, causing a disturbance, causing a blockage. Worst case scenario is that there is a blockage within your digestive system that requires serious medical attention. So we say to ourselves in these distortions that I'm not safe in my own skin or in my own environment. I am not full of life. I have no creativity, no passion. Or I am envious of others' lives and creativity and their passions. And so I feel numb to my emotions, or I am unabashed about expressing my emotions without temperament. And what I mean by that is that just because we feel a certain way does not necessarily mean that we have the right to express it in any way that we want to at all costs. We also may feel that I'm out of control with my own life, which seems to be more towards the victimhood state of being. Or we feel that I am in control of my own life and I'm just going to bulldoze over anybody who gets in my way. And we become more of a predator or an aggressor. Some of us believe in our distortions that I am unlovable. Or some others believe that I love myself so much I'm going to get whatever I want, regardless of the consequences. Some believe I am voiceless, I can't speak my truth, or my truth is not heard. And some others believe that I will speak and say whatever it is I want to say. Whoever gets hurt, so be it. Some feel that they have no insights. Some feel that they're not open to others' insights. Some feel that they are connected, and some feel that they are not connected to the God of their understanding. How does these show up in our lives? These distortions? Physically, they show up in diseases and ailments. Emotionally, they show up in depression or other mental health concerns. Mentally, we might have clouded minds, or we might have disbelief, or we might have rigid minds. Spiritually, we might feel a lack of connection with God, or we see and experience a judgmental God, or we have hopelessness. And probably one of the worst things in which ways that this shows up is in our relationships. We tend to have very volatile relationships. That doesn't mean necessarily volatile from the standpoint that there's physical abuse, but it can mean that we lack that connection. We lack that energy with the other person, whether that's one person or a group or many different groups. Sometimes we can be in a relationship and yet still feel alone. That's how that will show up in our relationships. So the goal is to be mindful and intentional. The soul of food can be a vehicle to renew our bodies, our mind, and our soul, as well as our spirit. Balance is important to reacquaint ourselves to the totality of food and its properties. One of the benefits of the pandemic over the past year and a half is that many people returned to the table, returned to the kitchen. There have been many, many stories of people baking and finding new recipes. And there have been many stories of families returning to the table to have conversation with one another, to be with one another, mainly because we couldn't go anywhere and we had no other options. But we took the opportunity to sit down with one another and to re-engage with one another in a meaningful way. When we heal our distortions that get played out in our lives and those around us on a small scale, then we can be able to make changes not only in our lives, but on a larger scale as well. So the soul of food, let's talk a little bit more about that. We all know that the soul of food is sustenance. It gives us the basic needs that we have within our system, our physical system, to be able to give us the energy to live and breathe and be alive. It helps us to move. The essence of food literally feeds us. So many of us know about that. But many of us have been disconnected from the medicinal ways that the soul of food can help us. There's certain recipes, for example, that have been passed down to us. So for example, chicken noodle soup. One study found that by consuming chicken noodle soup, that it can reduce upper respiratory cold symptoms by moving around neutrophils in the body. Another one that many of us know, ginger ale. Ginger, one of the ingredients to ginger ale, has been proven to alleviate nausea, and the soda water replaces fluids lost that the episode of gastrointestinal distress, or upset stomach has caused. These old remedies actually have not only scientific and physical benefits, but spiritual as well. Our ancestors were the ones to be able to come upon this, and they passed that on to us. But there are many foods that we can gravitate towards that have some of those same healing properties. Plant medicine, for example, has always been used by our ancestors and us today to be able to bring healing to some of our ailments. Before Big Pharma came along, nature provided what we needed, and we had that accessible to us. And we can return to that way of living by educating ourselves and understanding the qualities, not only the physical, but the medicinal and spiritual qualities of food. The soul of food brings healing to our emotions as well. We all know comfort food. Comfort food is delicious. Why? Because it brings comfort not only to our physical body, but also it satisfies whatever emotions we may be going through. Our ancestors and their ancestors, upon generation, had a connection with the soul of food. They appreciated the qualities that it offered to the community. When I say the soul of food, you might also think soul food. And when you think of soul food, you might think of some communities that have been using soul food for decades, if not for centuries. There's one particular group of people, the Koreans, that have their own version of soul food. That's right. Every culture, every group of people have their own view and their own experience of soul food. For example, during the Japanese colonial rule from 1910 to 1945, and the Korean War during 1950 and 1953, Japanese developed their version of soul food to help them during those times of ethnic grief during those periods. There were certain foods that they ate, some of it out of necessity, some of it out of desire. And, excuse me, and over time, that became part of their soul food. It fed their soul. And in that case, emotionally, it helped them to solve some of their distress that they were experiencing, some of their dis-ease they were experiencing emotionally. Did you know that Hawaiians really endear spam? That's right, spam. Canned ham. Well, it's a delicacy over there in Hawaii, and they really gravitate towards it, and it's part of their soul food. But spam got introduced to them during World War II when the GIs came over and took spam with them. And during that stressful period, it became part of their survival and has stuck with them ever since. And then not other people know that here in America, when you say soul food, that's always a reference usually towards African Americans. But the African Americans that eat soul food came out of distressful periods too. A lot of the scraps that were left over from the main house were given to the Africans that were there. And they, through love and through attention, they were able to find ways to be able to make it edible, make it tasteful. And this day, we enjoy that and consider it soul food because it does feed our soul. The soul of food is also ceremonial and ritual. Whenever there's a baptism, confirmation, a bat or a bar mitzvah, or someone's moving into adulthood, going on a walkabout or a vision quest, or graduations of all sorts, promotions, weddings, repasts, even heads of state's dinner, sage used for clearing and incense for rites. The list goes on, but the soul of food is an integral part of all of those celebrations. The soul of food, as you can see, is more than to be consumed. Our culture is more geared towards the practice and consumption versus the art of preservation, restoration, and renewal. Convenience has become paramount in our life. There's nothing wrong with convenience, but it does seem that we have come to a place where convenience is the way of life. In the long run, I believe we lose in that direction. We lose our connection with the earth, the ground, the sky, the vegetation, the animals, the sun, the wind, the rain, and its appreciation. And we start to see them and experiences as inconveniences. We lose our connection with the process of creating, sustaining, renewing, because we live in a society, in a world this day, where we can pretty much have whatever we want instantly. And if we're not able to get it instantly, then it usually rubs us some kind of way. We lose our connection with our family, our friends, our neighbor on a micro scale, and with greater parts of humanity on a macro scale, because we don't have to interact or engage with one another as much as we used to, as much as our ancestors used to. Our connection to ourselves, we lose that at times, and at all levels, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And we lose our connection with the divine God of our understanding. Again, this gets played out in so many different ways at so many levels. But one of the most damaging effects of these is the loss of our connection with one another. Remember what I said at the beginning. Our DNA is of the universe, and the DNA of the universe is deeply embedded with all of creation, including us. So we are not only one with the universe, but we are truly one with one another. So return to the table is important, not only for ourselves, but it's important in reestablishing good, healthy, life-giving relationships with the other. We were made and created to be in community. Growing up, I remember having dinner time. That was a staple in our house. Growing up, there was a time in which we all had to come to dinner. And we sat down, we listened to one another, we shared what was going on with our day, we were asked questions, we had chores afterwards, but it was a time for community within that household. As my children grew up, we still had dinner time, but it became almost a second thought to be able to do it that way. Why? Because life was just so busy. There were sporting events to attend, other responsibilities that our children had in order to be able to be part of society. And so dinner time kind of went to the wayside a little bit. We didn't cook as often. We needed a convenience of pickup, or we went out because we didn't have time. Our ancestors utilized the soul of food for practical but meaningful purposes. And they had dinner time and other meal times. In addition to that, they also had gatherings for engagements where two families would come together. They had other individual large family gatherings, celebrations, harvests. Harvest was huge for our ancestors because what they did then was that they would have the harvest of the crops, or they would have hunters go out and bring back meat and slaughter them, but it was done for the whole community. Each family received a portion of it so that they were, in essence, looking after their people, looking after their community. They could have just kept the crops to themselves, or they could have kept whatever meat that they had to themselves. But in doing so, that would have gone to waste, and their neighbors would have gone hungry. But there was a lifestyle and there was a way of being that we've lost a little bit because our disconnection with creation. The soul of food has also been used for peace talks. Oftentimes when heads of states get together, there is a meal that they share. There's an opportunity to share one's culture, to be able to see how the other person lives, what drives them, but also as an opportunity to engage in meaningful dialogue because food is universal. I know that when a lot of people get together, food is often one of the topics that they bring up. What do you want to eat? Because there is something about the presence of food that helps neutralizes tension, that opens the door for a conversation and opportunity to be able to solve problems. Returning to the table reminds me of what negotiators used to say. in order to resolve contractual issues. They would say, in order to solve this, you must come to the table. And that is so true. When negotiations break down and people are set in their own side, they break away from the table. The table here, metaphorically, shows that it's a meeting place, it's an opportunity to come together as one, to be able to discuss the things that is for the highest good of all. And so coming to the table, returning to the table, is the opportunity to start over, to start fresh, to build something, to co-create with something and with someone that's for the highest good of all, where it is a win-win situation. So it's important that we talk about returning to the table, to return to the table of ourselves, to heal our own distortions, to work on ourselves to be able to find what it is that we may be lacking, what it is that we can improve upon. How can I be a better citizen? How can I be a better human being? How can I embrace my neighbor who may be different from me? Return to the table of others creates space of hospitality. It neutralizes tensions to be able to help people to feel safe, to feel like they have a place of belonging. So many people in our world do not feel like they belong. They're either told that or is either shown to them in other ways that may not be said verbally. A place of belonging is for all of us. We're all human beings. We're all created by the God of our understanding. We all breathe and need water, and we all survive on food. That is the same for all of us. When we engage and believe that and hold that, then we have the opportunity to create a better world and not be so fractured. Again, our loss is partly due to loss of connection and the distortions that we have. And this domino effect that we create is created on the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual plane, but also has effects on the economy, culture, race, and other human beings. Due to distortions, we don't always see ourselves for who we truly are as divine beings, created by the God of our understanding. And because of that, nor do we see others in the same light. The differences we see are not valued, but rather amplified as something not to be associated with. It's time to return to the table to reorient ourselves and embrace our human and divine qualities of balance, of peace, of respect, and love. It is difficult to overcome the things that ill our society. A living organism made up of all of us, if we ourselves are at dis-ease, the disease that we get is projected into the greater community. That being said, if it goes one way, then surely it can go another. If we return to the table, we can bring healing to the global community on all levels. We can solve larger issues such as human rights, racial and cultural diversity, religious and spiritual tolerance, sustainable food supplies, etc. However, we must start somewhere. I contend that we start within ourselves and then work out. And then once we start working outward, then to return to ourselves, constantly learning, growing, cooperating, harmonizing, and perfecting the process. When we are able to do this, then we are able to ask these tough questions, such as, how can the soul of food engage in conversations of cultural diversity? How can the soul of food engage in conversations of social justice? How can the soul of food engage in conversations about sustainability of the food chain? How can the soul of food engage in conversations regarding Gaia, Mother Earth, and being stewards of the earth? These type of questions can be answered on a larger scale when we first start answering the questions on a smaller scale. a more personal scale from within ourselves? How can the soul of food help me to engage in conversation with someone who I do not agree with politically? How can the soul of food engage me in the conversation with someone who looks different from me, who comes from a different place? Or how can the soul of food help me engage in conversation when I look different than someone else, or I come from a different place, or I have different beliefs than the other person? Food is universal. And because it's universal, it is an entryway for all of us to be able to engage in conversation with one another. Again, it can neutralize any tensions. It can bring ease to our diseasement that we may be experiencing. For many cultures throughout eons, they have used food and its healing properties as a way to be able to build community. Medicine men and medicine women were experts in using herbs, extracts, and other forms of plant-based and food items to bring healing to their community. Leaders within the community will often have gatherings, and when there were gatherings, they would have food present, because it's not enough to just feed the physical body, but you must also feed the soul. And food does that because the food has soul. It has many, many properties. It is not just about sustenance, but it is a healing agent and a vehicle to improve the quality of our lives. But remember, the old saying goes, too much of a good thing could be bad for you. So there needs to be balance. So in experiencing food, learning to have balance. In cultivating food, it teaches us about patience. It teaches us about acceptance. For the earth will only yield what we put into it. And there are times in which it won't yield. And so it teaches us acceptance. It teaches us how to deal with grief, but also teaches us how to be able to gather as a community and be with the community and share and to receive. These life lessons go way beyond just what the food does for us physically. It teaches us on all levels, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Food is a very powerful vehicle to bring people together. And if we're able to do that for ourselves, then we can share in that process and that experience with others. Instead of focusing on things that we don't have in common, we begin to celebrate the things that we do. And after all, we all eat. So the soul of food, this is a rallying call to have everyone think about and be mindful about what food means to them. Explore all the possibilities that food offers. And in doing so, share those experiences and share in the experiences of others. Return to the table of self. Heal your distortions. Be aware of your place in the universe. Return to the table to help others to do the same. And return to the table to build a greater community, a global community that's filled with love and peace instead of destruction, discord, and hate. Thank you for listening to me. I hope that this talk fed your soul. If you're interested in learning more, you can contact me at Jim Wilson, PTS, the number 98, at gmail.com. Again, Jim Wilson, PTS, the number 98, at gmail.com. I would love to sit at the table with you and continue this conversation, where there are more steps to take after this presentation. So thank you all again for joining me at this hour. I give thanks to Colin for being the room steward. I give thanks to my friend Brian Kelly, and I give thanks to Terry Angel for being tech support people. And I give thanks to World United Week, Unity Earth, Purpose Earth, and the other Convergence leaders that are responsible for this week of healing, of love, of light, and community. Take care and bless you all.